This content is presented purely for educational purposes. It does not promote, glorify, or encourage any form of illegal activity. All names, events, and organizations referenced are based on publicly available records and open source research. Viewer discretion is advised due to the sensitive nature of the subject matter. This material does not endorse or condone violence, nor does it encourage any form of unauthorized group operations or other prohibited behaviors. Los Angeles County Deputy Cliques and Alleged Gangs, a comprehensive educational overview. Since the 1970s, multiple internal groups, referred to by many as deputy gangs or subgroups, have reportedly emerged within the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Various investigations, legal proceedings, testimonies, and accounts by both community members and LASD insiders suggest these groups sometimes adopt matching tattoos and, in some instances, encourage or engage in unauthorized activities which may include fabricated evidence, unjustified use of force, intimidation, or cover-ups of fellow group member misconduct. Civil litigation has resulted in significant payouts by Los Angeles County, with testimony and official reports indicating that these alleged deputy gangs have existed in multiple LASD stations and facilities. This long-form piece consolidates all available information from numerous sources, each publicly documented, to provide a clear, in-depth historical and sociological overview. It includes all significant names, key dates, reported events, lawsuits, and official or journalistic findings about deputy gang cliques. Every attempt has been made to adhere to a neutral, respectful, and fact-based educational tone. Legal definitions and policy context. California Penal Code 13670. Effective in 2022, California Penal Code 13670 defines a law enforcement gang as a group of peace officers within a law enforcement agency who may identify themselves by a name and may be associated with an identifying symbol, and who engage in a pattern of on-duty behavior that intentionally violates the law or fundamental principles of professional policing, including but not limited to excluding, harassing, or discriminating against an individual, falsifying police reports, fabricating or destroying evidence, targeting persons for enforcement based solely on protected characteristics, theft, unauthorized use of alcohol or controlled substances on duty, unlawful or unauthorized protection of other members from, disciplinary actions, and retaliation against other officers who threaten or interfere with the activities of the group. California Penal Code 186.22. Under California Penal Code 186.22, in effect for decades, a criminal street gang is defined as an ongoing, organized association or group of three or more persons, whether formal or informal, having as one of its primary activities the commission of one or more of the criminal acts enumerated in subdivision, having a common name or common identifying sign or symbol, and whose members collectively engage in or have engaged in a pattern of criminal gang activity. Many legal experts and civil litigators allege that certain deputy groups meet one or both definitions. Official inquiries, lawsuits, and media investigations repeatedly suggest that some within these internal cliques have engaged in conduct consistent with an unauthorized group activity. Early history, Little Devils, and other foundational groups. The first publicly known LASD deputy gang was the Little Devils, based out of the East Los Angeles station. Deputies of the Little Devils were documented during the National Chicano Moratorium March of August 29, 1970. On that date, a protest occurred against the Vietnam War in East Los Angeles. It ended in turmoil, including the tragic death of Los Angeles Times reporter Ruben Salazar, who was struck by a tear gas canister fired by a sheriff's deputy. The East Los Angeles station was later associated with deputy groups that allegedly targeted protesters and community members. By 1973, an internal memo compiled a list of 47 deputies with the group's distinctive red devil tattoo. Not long after, additional groupings formed, including the Cavemen at the East Los Angeles station by the late 1980s. Allegations arose that former Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva was tied to the Cavemen, or had once claimed that we were all cavemen, while serving in that station. Similarly, Deputy Paul Tanaka, later to become undersheriff, became associated with the Lynwood Vikings, a group active at the now-defunct Lynwood station. These deputy cliques or subgroups were identified in certain official reports as being particularly prevalent in communities with large populations of people of color. Expanding presence in correctional facilities. Besides station-based deputy gangs, parallel or overlapping groups emerged in Los Angeles County correctional facilities. Among these were Wayside Whiteys, also called the Wayside on a Ranch Gang, which resurfaced in 1990 at the Peter J. Pitchess Detention Center. They were reported to assault or torture individuals in custody, often with racially biased motivations. 3,000 boys, situated in the men's central jail. Some sources indicate this may be among the largest deputy gangs, known for allegedly using excessive force on individuals in custody, followed by falsified reports. A distinctive 3 tattoo, Roman numerals for 3, was often displayed. According to public records, at least 18 deputy cliques or gangs have been identified in modern times within the LASD, though estimates vary. Documented activities and alleged misconduct, excessive use of force, and fabricated evidence. Deputy gangs have repeatedly been accused of unjustified violent encounters, ghost gun allegations, unlawful detention, intimidation of both civilians and non-gang deputies, retaliation against whistleblowers, and acts that seemingly escalate conflicts. These accusations appear in numerous lawsuits and testimonies. 1. Banditos. A lawsuit by 8 deputies and the American Civil Liberties Union alleged that the Banditos controlled station operations like working hours, promotions, and days off run by shot callers who demanded loyalty. Some lawsuits and depositions describe the group as acting like inmates running a prison yard. Compton Executioners, known for skeleton tattoos featuring a rifle and the station's number, as well as CPT for Compton. Allegations include promoting violent confrontations against community members, with a particular focus on men of color. Congresswoman Maxine Waters asked the Department of Justice for an independent investigation into the executioners in 2021. Lynwood Vikings, described by one federal judge, Terry J. Hatter Jr., as a neo-Nazi white supremacist gang. Lawsuits from the early 1990s alleged racially targeted force. Former Undersheriff Paul Tanaka was identified as a member. The county paid millions in legal settlements. Repeated references exist to 998 tattoos symbolizing officer-involved violent encounters. 4 Wayside Whiteys, Pirates, Jump Out Boys, Grim Reapers, and others. Each group is alleged to have internal rules for membership that can involve the use of unlawful force, hush policies to keep quiet about wrongdoing, or symbolic tattoos signifying acceptance. Retaliation against non-gang deputies. Multiple deputy testimonies describe how these groups pressure or intimidate LASD personnel who refuse to cooperate with the clique's practices or who threaten to expose misconduct. Sergeant Pippin was reported to have received a loaded firearm rigged to discharge when the package was open, allegedly a warning from deputy gang colleagues. Lieutenant Walker Force and other station brass complained of repeated harassment, e.g., vandalism of personal vehicles, threatening phone calls, etc., when they attempted to curb or transfer known deputy gang members. Notable legal and public investigations. The Colts Commission. Following the 1992 Los Angeles unrest, the Colts Commission was formed to investigate patterns of excessive force within the LASD. Its final report expressed concern about deputy cliques at stations in areas with predominantly minority populations. However, it stopped short of labeling these groups as racist deputy gangs, stating that hard evidence was elusive. Class action lawsuits in Lynwood. In 1990, multiple federal civil rights lawsuits were filed against the LASD, focusing on the Lynwood Vikings. Dozens of Lynwood residents recounted cases of unjustified force, false arrests, and harassment. Ultimately, in 1996, a federal court approved a $7.5 million settlement with an injunction mandating changes in the department. Many victims described enduring humiliation, severe physical harm, or being framed for crimes they did not commit. Men's central jail abuses. Overlapping groups such as the 3,000 Boys came under national scrutiny for aggressive acts inside Los Angeles County jails. Lawsuits by the ACLU and private attorneys alleged that in many instances, incarcerated people were subjected to cruel practices including beatings, pepper spray, and use of tasers. Multiple civil cases resulted in multi-million-dollar settlements and re-energized calls for oversight of internal deputy clubs, Compton Station concerns, and the Executioners. The 2010s saw rising attention on the Compton Station, primarily around a group later dubbed the Executioners. They share a distinctive tattoo, a skeleton with a military-style helmet marked CPT, and an assault-style weapon bearing the number 28. Congresswoman Maxine Waters requested a federal Department of Justice investigation into the Executioners in 2021, pointing to allegations of unauthorized use of force and racially charged harassment, as well as internal celebrations called 998 parties in the aftermath of a deputy-involved violent encounter. Investigative journalism, a tradition of violence. Starting in 2020 and 2021, extensive exposés were published, detailing at least 24 deputy groups alleged to have existed or still existed inside LASD. Public records show that, cumulatively, litigation costs surpass $100 million over 3 decades for lawsuits involving or implicating deputy gang conduct. Notably, journalist Cerise Castle authored a series in Knock LA, chronicling 5 decades of alleged brutality and internal group violence. Meanwhile, civil rights attorney John Sweeney uncovered numerous details about the Executioners and others, frequently securing large settlement awards for victims. Structure and known deputy gangs in the LASD. Research from the press and lawsuits indicates the following deputy gangs or cliques, some of which continue to operate, have been active over the years. 1. Banditos, East Los Angeles Station 2. Buffalo Soldiers African American Deputies, Clique 3. Cavemen, East Los Angeles Station 4. Compton Executioners, Compton Station 5. Cowboys, various references, limited details 6. Grim Reapers, Lynwood Base 7. Industry Indians, Industry Station 8. Jump Out Boys, reportedly emphasizing aggressive tactics 9. Little Devils, Little Red Devils, East Los Angeles Station 10. Lynwood Vikings, Lynwood Station 11. Pirates, Data Limited 12. Posse and more rural or specialized units 13. Rattlesnakes, additional references from lawsuits 14. Regulators, linked to the Century Station 15. Spartans, identified in certain testimonies 16. Tasmanian Devils, additional references from older data 17. The Leafs, minimal publicly available data 18. 3,000 Boys, Men's Central Jail 19. 2,000 Boys, another jail-related clique 20. Temple Station V-Boys, Temple Station 21. Wayside Whiteys, Peter J. Pitches Detention Center. Though the overall number fluctuates, official statements indicate at least 6 remain active. Hunting for Humans in Lynwood and civil lawsuits. A major set of lawsuits in Lynwood during the early 1990s exposed systematic patterns in which residents described being rounded up, assaulted, or framed by deputies identified with the Vikings. For instance, civil rights attorney and private investigator David Lynn found repeated accounts that regular or routine violence was inflicted on minority residents by alleged Vikings. Some described it as a war on local Black or Latino communities with property defacement, intimidation, and false charges. Plaintiffs in these lawsuits recalled severe physical harm, coerced confessions, or station-based celebrations after certain incidents. Deputies who attempted to curtail the Vikings reported retaliation ranging from vandalism to threats on their lives. Senior leaderships sometimes tried transferring members out of the station, yet they were met with lawsuits or harassment from Vikings who contested such moves. Ultimately, an extensive lawsuit, Darren Thomas v. County of Los Angeles, filed in 1990 encompassed well over 90 victims, revealing a shocking pattern. Testimony described repeated violent confrontations, intimidation of bystanders, and widespread fear. The civil suit ended in a settlement of $7.5 million plus an injunction that mandated reforms. However, after an appeals process, the injunction was reversed and some deputy gang members advanced in rank or relocated to other LAASD stations. Lynwood's worst nightmare, specific incidents. Dozens of harrowing stories emerged in the early 1990s. William Leonard was subjected to a violent encounter on February 10, 1990, resulting in fatal injuries. Demetrio Carrillo was reportedly beaten for observing a traffic citation. Jose Ortega and Aaron Breitigam were forcibly dragged from a porch and attacked, sustaining severe injuries. Lloyd Polk, a half-black, half-Latino man, was violently attacked in February 1990 and then wrongfully detained for 17 days. Fernando Martinez had his head shoved into a squad car window until it cracked and was arrested multiple times without substantial cause. Alvin Washington, Jeffrey Holloman, Danny Williams, and Charles Scott encountered a destructive raid at Washington's auto shop. They described being held at gunpoint, subjected to physical harm, and denied medical care. These incidents exemplify the environment local community members recounted living in, with an overwhelming fear of being targeted by deputy gang members. The miracle trial and broader impact. Despite the initial success of the plaintiff's legal team in these Lynwood-based suits, many found themselves intimidated. Investigator David Lynn recounted instances of drive-by threats, and one key witness, Lloyd Polk III, was lost to a fatal attack by unknown assailants. Although progress proved difficult, the scrutiny brought about by these cases shone a spotlight on deputy gangs. Yet the dissolution of the Lynwood station, along with repeated reassignments of known Vikings, allowed elements of these cliques to spread or evolve in new stations. The 21st century, gangs in Compton, Banditos in East LA, and renewed investigations. Compton Executioners. The Compton Executioners rose to national attention in the late 2010s, particularly in the violent encounter involving 18-year-old Andres Guardado, who was confronted by deputies Miguel Vega and Chris Hernandez in June 2020. Guardado's death brought intense media focus and further allegations that potential recruits were chasing ink by engaging in unauthorized uses of force to obtain a skeleton-themed executioner tattoo. Former Deputy Ostroberto Art Gonzalez filed a lawsuit stating that the executioners hold significant sway at the Compton station, that they celebrate 998 parties, and that ghost guns, i.e., fabricated references to weapons, are occasionally invoked to justify a lethal or violent encounter. Congresswoman Maxine Waters called for federal intervention after these disclosures. Meanwhile, members or prospects such as Miguel Vega maintained their right to remain silent, and some internal investigations stalled. Banditos at the East Los Angeles station. In 2018, 8 LAASD deputies from the East Los Angeles station sued the Banditos, claiming the clique's leadership, nicknamed shot callers, rewarded loyalty with prime assignments and punished those who objected. This included allegations of a brawl at a station event in 2018. Sheriff Alex Villanueva publicly claimed to have disciplined 26 employees and removed the alleged ringleaders, but insisted that there are no gangs in the department, describing them as unsanctioned subgroups. Some of the same allegations repeated claims that the Banditos particularly targeted or blocked advancement for female deputies and deputies of color. Sheriff Alex Villanueva and Undersheriff Paul Tanaka. Paul K. Tanaka is an American former law enforcement officer and politician, having served as Undersheriff of Los Angeles County and Mayor of Gardena. His career ignited controversy due to allegations of violence, corruption, and membership in the Lynwood Vikings. A federal judge once described the Vikings as a neo-Nazi white supremacist gang. Tanaka, of Japanese descent, has a Vikings tattoo from his time at Lynwood Station. He became undersheriff under Lee Baca in 2011, but resigned in 2013 during an FBI probe into unauthorized practices at Men's Central. In 2015, Tanaka was indicted on federal conspiracy and obstruction charges, convicted in 2016, and served a 5-year prison sentence for conspiracy to obstruct justice and obstruction of justice. His involvement underscores the extent to which powerful figures within the LASD have intersected with alleged deputy gang activity. Alex Villanueva. Elected in 2018, Sheriff Alex Villanueva entered office pledging reform. Previously a lieutenant, he publicly opposed certain oversight measures and repeatedly denied the existence of gangs in the LASD, although he acknowledges certain internal subgroups. Villanueva's tenure has featured multiple controversies, including tensions with the Civilian Oversight Commission, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, and local activist organizations. Villanueva lost his re-election bid in 2022 to Robert Luna. Critics argue that Villanueva insufficiently addressed the deputy gang problem, while others note his removal or suspension of multiple employees suspected of clique activity, such as at the East Los Angeles station. The question remains unresolved as ongoing lawsuits and investigations into these groups continue. Costs, settlements, and wider community effects. From the 1990s through 2022, Los Angeles County has paid out more than $100 million to settle claims linked to deputy gang misconduct or alleged misconduct. Those impacted are disproportionately individuals from Black and Latino neighborhoods where these deputy cliques historically operate. Among the largest settlements, Darren Thomas versus County of Los Angeles in Lynwood, $7. $5 million settlement. Harrowing accounts from Men's Central Jail culminated in multi-million-dollar legal fees across multiple lawsuits in the 2000s and 2010s. Compton Station, related claims brought by attorney John Sweeney, resulting in millions more in combined settlements or verdicts, including $7 million to the family of Donta Taylor, who was fatally wounded in 2016, amid allegations that deputies involved fabricated claims of an armed threat. These financial awards, while compensating victims' families in some measure, have not conclusively eliminated deputy gang influence. Instead, repeated investigations by attorneys, the media, and oversight bodies highlight the underlying systemic nature of the issue. Legislative and oversight responses. 1. State legislation. Enacted in 2021-2022, this requires all law enforcement agencies in California to maintain policies prohibiting law enforcement gangs and stipulates that membership in such a group shall be grounds for termination. 2. Congressional intervention. Multiple letters were sent by congressional representatives, including Maxine Waters, Jimmy Gomez, and Jamie Raskin, urging the U.S. Department of Justice to launch thorough investigations into allegations of deputy gangs, particularly the Compton Executioners. 3. California Attorney General Civil Rights Investigation. In January 2021, then Attorney General Xavier Becerra announced a pattern or practice investigation into the LASD aimed at determining if there has been a repeated pattern of unconstitutional policing, including excessive force and retaliation. 4. Oversight commissions. The Los Angeles Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission has held multiple hearings and attempted to subpoena top LASD officials, sometimes meeting resistance. They have described deputy gangs as fueling excessive force and discriminatory practices, calling on leadership to adopt stronger reforms. The man who cracked the code and the ongoing revelations. Attorney John Sweeney's role. Attorney John Sweeney played a significant part in exposing the Compton Station's alleged executioners clique. After representing numerous families and victims of disputed LASD confrontations, Sweeney deposed deputies to reveal their tattoos or membership traditions and initiation methods. His clients included the family of 31-year-old Donta Taylor, whose demise spurred a $7 million settlement. The family of 21-year-old Robert Thomas Jr. and 16-year-old Avery Cody involved questionable claims of firearms, resulting in large settlements. Sweeney's depositions compelled deputies like Samuel Aldama to disclose the existence of the executioners. Aldama testified to having a skeleton tattoo with an assault-style rifle and CPT and 28, though he denied personal wrongdoing. Sweeney's strategy forced the release of images and documentation, propelling widespread awareness. LASD whistleblower Deputy Ostroberto Art Gonzalez. Key testimony emerged from Deputy Gonzalez, who described pursuit of ink for lethal force, ghost guns, and 998 parties, to celebrate successful lethal or near-lethal confrontations. Gonzalez's account spurred calls for a federal investigation from Representative Maxine Waters. He later filed a lawsuit against the LASD, alleging retaliation after he reported these activities through official channels. Prominent individuals: Alex Villanueva, 33rd Sheriff of Los Angeles County. Paul Tanaka, former undersheriff, later convicted of conspiracy and obstruction. Timothy Murakami, LASD undersheriff, as of various official rosters. Lee Baca, former sheriff, convicted on charges related to obstructing a federal investigation into jail abuses. Maxine Waters, U.S. Representative, advocating for a DOJ probe into deputy gang presence in Compton. John Sweeney, civil rights attorney whose lawsuits and depositions exposed Compton Station executioners. Concluding observations. The full scope of alleged deputy gang influence within the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department remains a matter of ongoing investigation, litigation, and public debate. Numerous lawsuits, both individual and class action, attest to a long-standing pattern with at least 6 subgroups identified as currently active. Testimony suggests these networks reward aggressive or unauthorized action and silence dissent within the LASD. Despite multiple reforms, including AB 958 requiring policies against law enforcement gangs and a California Attorney General civil rights probe, the documented existence of deputy cliques such as the Banditos, Executioners, Vikings, and others continues to generate scrutiny. The tension between official statements, some claiming these are harmless fraternities, and the accounts of families, civil attorneys, and whistleblowers highlight the complexity of resolving the issue. Critics insist that until a systemic overhaul or targeted federal investigation occurs, deputy gangs will remain a uniquely troubling aspect of law enforcement culture. Likewise, some officials emphasize their attempts to terminate or discipline suspected members while contending that not all station tattoos indicate wrongdoing. Regardless, the topic stands as a stark reminder that accountability and oversight remain critical components of modern policing. The experiences of impacted Angelenos, especially communities of color, underscore the deep need for continued vigilance, transparent investigations, and robust public debate surrounding the future of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department.